Hi, I'm Marty Mosley, head of the Total TV Network. We have placed the entire Parenting by Heart series, all 4 shows, on one VHS tape. If you'd like to give this home version of Parenting by Heart to a relative or friend, just call or write today and we'll send you the tape and one student handbook for $29.95. It makes a great gift for any parent. Now, on with Parenting by Heart.
Coming up on Parenting by Heart.
We have to realize that the kids are always looking up.
We don't want to compartmentalize our faith where it's just something we do on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Out here on the mission field, I needed help.
We have our own downfalls and shortcomings.
I've heard it said that people view God as they do their own father.
I want them to look at me and say, my father's a man of God.
What they see in our lives, they're going to catch.
They're watching us.
Hi, I'm Nancy Lowe.
And I'm Ted Lowe, and welcome to Parenting by Heart. Today we're talking about passing along a lasting legacy, teaching your child about your faith and your values.
In our first show of the series, we discovered that unconditional love is the very foundation of successful parenting.
And unconditional love is still so crucial while you're trying to pass along your spiritual values. But if your child doesn't feel love, the consequences can be so disheartening.
I remember just lying in bed and just holding myself just because I felt like no one else loved me, and just lying there with tears streaming down my face till like 2 o'clock in the morning until I could fall asleep. My mother travels a lot, and my father's real committed to his work, so oftentimes I'm left alone in the house, and I get real lonely, and that's real discouraging for me. And I felt at one point that I wasn't loved at all. And I thought, well, if I'm not loved, then, what's my point of even being here? And I said to myself, what if I just went for a long walk and just didn't come back? I said, would no one even care because no one's home to care? I just felt like I had no control over if anyone loved me or, who could be home to be there for me. And it was a real scary time for me because I'd never felt that lonely before.
I don't think any parent watching this series wants their child to feel like Kristen, but sadly, some of you do have children that feel lonely and unloved.
Christian counselor Pam Johnson says the reason may be that many parents are running on empty. They're exhausted and they have nothing left to give.
I'm working right now.
I'm on the phone.
Where's that homework that I told you to put on the couch?
Why won't you ever listen to me?
I have 2 children. I see probably 20, 25 clients a week. And at the end of any given day, especially if it's one of my long work days, I am fairly well worn out.
All right, girls, 2 more minutes.
I look at that picture of my children and my family that I have on my desk, and I think that is one bright spot in my life. And many times I realize, have I really let them know on a daily basis just how bright a spot they are? Sometimes I can be overwhelmed, sometimes I can be frustrated, sometimes I can be anxious. I haven't been taking care of myself, getting enough sleep, exercise, rest. I've let things overwhelm me. I haven't been taking my problems perhaps to the Lord and letting Him help me with them. I've been trying to carry them all myself. And when I'm preoccupied or overly stressed or overly tired or overly anxious in that manner, it is impossible for me to show my children what I simply don't have. I can't give what I don't have. Parents need to be especially careful and mindful of their own emotional state and how are they handling themselves, balancing their lives, because I think it's a very challenging job to be a parent, and there's so much coming out of us on a daily basis. We need to be very careful that we're putting something back in our own emotional tanks, otherwise we'll run dry and our children will be left with an empty tank.
When you are frustrated, tired, too busy, and overwhelmed, you will not be able to meet the needs of your children. Dr. Ross Campbell talks about the importance of the atmosphere in your home.
One of the most wonderful things we can give our child is a home atmosphere that they can thrive in. where they just feel comfortable and can grow and can be happy. It's one that's relaxed, laid back, humorous. A child will thrive and grow in that type of atmosphere. On the other hand, one that's tense and uptight, a child isn't going to grow. They're not going to mature in that type of atmosphere.
Every aspect of parenting centers around having a positive, loving atmosphere at home. And you can do this as a single dad, or as a single mom, or as a parent in a blended family.
There is a direct connection between the relationship that you have with your child and whether or not your child will accept or reject your Christian faith.
I'm not a Christian, I'm not an atheist. I believe what I believe because I believe it. I just didn't find any comfort, any satisfaction in Christianity. I never did. And when I needed something, it didn't work. I had this whole life from when I was young till when I was in middle school. And then a big chunk of it, my family, fell out. My parents got divorced over about 3 years. I mean, my whole family structure broke down. I mean, my family just pretty much is gone. I don't really have much of a family. When they got divorced, they were very mean to each other. They made a lot of mistakes and did a lot of bad things to myself, my brother, my sister, and each other. My mom and dad were both active in the church. I would get mad at God, I guess I would say. There's no way there's a God or this wouldn't be happening. And it would just really torment me, and I would wonder how could that be possible if there's a God. I saw my parents be so bad and so despicable, and I saw that they were Christians, and just because it's my parents' faith doesn't mean that it's right for me.
Will's faith has been determined by his parents' behavior, not by his friends and not by the media. Dr. Ross Campbell and Dr. Kevin Lehman agree that as parents, you still have a strong influence on your children's behavior.
Good or bad, you have to understand as a parent, you are a living legacy. And you have left an indelible imprint on each of your children. The question for your parents is this: did I just leave a bunch of rules and a bunch of standards, or did I really share with them the new life you have in Christ?
Don't you push me down. Don't you do it. Oh.
Studies indicate that the influence of parents far outweighs anything else. Despite all the many distractions for your child, you still have the greatest influence on your child.
Here's the good news. In a positive relationship with your child, they're going to be much more likely to accept your values and your faith in God.
With that encouraging thought, author Tim Smith offers us 3 ways to pass along a lasting legacy to our children.
So how do we pass on an emotional and spiritual legacy? The first one is to model a growing and personal faith. Our kids are looking for role models of seeing their faith applied to everyday life.
If you want a wake-up call to being a parent, then have a toddler follow you around all day and do exactly what you do, every little gesture, every little movement that you make, and then at the end of the day to look at you and say, Mommy, I want to be just like you.
I think maybe my attitude and my hollering and yelling and screaming out, especially Kaylin's basketball games, I think my kids wonder sometimes why I react the way I do and why that doesn't necessarily conform with what I try to teach them outside of a sporting event.
As we walk through life, we have to realize that the kids are always taking notes, emotional notes, spiritual notes. They're watching us. They see how we deal with life. My little daughter Hannah was with me one day, and I was in a grocery line, and the clerk made a mistake on the change. And I said to her, I said, "Excuse me, you made a mistake." Well, the clerk immediately became defensive and said, "No, I didn't." I said, "Excuse me, you did. You gave me a change for a 20. I gave you a 10. And I handed back the money to her. Now, Hannah didn't say a word, but she was looking up, and she's observing it. So again, parents, it's not what you say that really makes a difference. It's what you do.
Take it right out of Deuteronomy 6, that as we walk and talk, we will teach our kids principles. It's making everyday occurrences have spiritual significance.
I want them to look at me and say, you know, number one, my father's a man of God. Secondly, my father loves me tremendously. And thirdly, when I want to marry a man like my father.
I hope our girls, from watching us and seeing us the way that we treat each other and the way we treat others, that somehow our faith that we have will be instilled into them.
My grandparents were pillars of faith, and that faith that they had, that trust that they have in God, it passed to me as their granddaughter. And that's my desire for my kids, that they understand that every good thing comes from above.
I've heard it said that people view God as they do their own father. So as God has forgiven me, I try to forgive my son and try to ask forgiveness.
I try to live my life as a Christian. We talk openly about God and about faith and about how it works. They see me trying to grow and walk in the Lord.
Is our example always perfect? No, it's not. We have our own downfalls and shortcomings, but I think the best example that you can be, not just, okay, it's Sunday morning, we'll act this way for Sunday. It takes 7 days a week of being a Christian.
We want to be well-rounded in our faith. We want it to be included in every aspect of our life. How we drive, how we play sports, how we spend our finances. We don't want to compartmentalize our faith where it's just something we do on Sundays and Wednesdays, but we're authentic that it infiltrates every aspect of our life. But catch this, we don't have to be perfect, we just have to be authentic.
The second way to pass along a lasting legacy is to teach your children to serve.
One of our concerns as parents is, will our kids turn out to be spoiled rotten?
No!
How many times do I have to tell you that?
Working. Make him do something.
One of the things that we want to do is teach them to serve. How do we teach our kids to serve? We provide a model of us serving. We show us meeting needs of people in the community or the neighborhood, because families have members, they don't have guests. And whenever our kids begin to think that they are honored guests within the home, hey mom, serve me, dad, could you bring me another cookie? Then they get the sense of entitlement that they're there to be served. But Jesus said, I am not here to be served, I am here to serve. One of the best ways that we can help kids become Christ-like is to teach them how to serve, and we teach them best by showing them through our own personal example.
A good place to begin is in your home. You can give your child the chance to serve the family in a team project.
We use just about all the money I make just to pay the bills. I say sometimes that we're financially challenged, and as most single-parent homes are. And so we decided that we really needed to have more fun. So we decided as a family that we would babysit one night a month for some of the families in the neighborhood or families that I already cared for during the day. My daughter will do the babies, and my sons get together and do a puppet show or a magic show, and we entertain the children, and we feed them a snack, and we do something fun with them. Then we take that money that we earn and we go do something fun with it. And we've done wonderful, wonderful things. So they really feel very much a part of things as a family unit.
We've robbed kids today of the opportunity to give back to us as a family. I want my kids to see that, again, this isn't a hotel, it's a home, and you give back to it. A good job for a child, beside taking out the garbage, is things like writing out the checks. Yeah, you take time to train them how to do that, and you work with them. You certainly wouldn't let them sign the check. You want to make sure there's the right number of zeros on those checks, but it's a good training for kids. It's called reality.
Just recently, and it was my wife's idea, that we helped one of the homeless shelters with a Sunday morning worship time. We brought food in and served them. Hopefully that made a memory for them and made a difference in seeing that we were doing something for someone else.
At Christmas every year, my side of the family has over 20 grandchildren. And so instead of buying gifts for the nieces and nephews, we all pull that money that we would normally spend and we support a needy family.
When we moved here, we sort of cleaned out our closets in our old house. And Melinda made a lot of trips to Goodwill. She would go through and clean stuff out. And that made an impact on Hadley, because for months after that, Hadley would say, well, I don't use this toy anymore, or I don't need this doll, but somebody could use it. We could give it to Goodwill. or we could, take something and give it to a child that needs it. And she's learned from that, and she's a willing giver now.
The third way to leave a lasting legacy involves prayer.
Dear Lord, we just want to thank you for this food.
I want to thank you for my family.
In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Another way that we can help pass along an active and growing faith is to pray for our children and with them. A lot of times they may not want to pray, so we could say, what would you like me to pray for you about? Anything going on at school? Are you worried about tomorrow's game? What can we pray about?
Every day before they get out of the car to go to school, I say, I love you, have a good day, and I'll be praying for you today.
We have family prayer. We talk about our faith.
If we see something on TV, there's been a tragedy in the news this week, we've prayed for the families.
There's a couple of things we're trying to reinforce through prayer. One of them is to reinforce the Lord's Prayer, which is why we do it every Sunday. Another one is why we each have our own assigned day to say the prayer, is to get comfortable in verbalizing that aloud, so that whether in church or in any other setting you're asked to say a prayer, we've practiced and we're comfortable in saying what we believe and what we're thankful for.
We try to also make sure that our kids learn to lean on God and trust in God to help, even with some very simple things.
We have looked at 3 effective ways in which you can pass along a lasting legacy to your children.
Pray with and for your children, teach your children to serve, and model a growing faith. Be authentic.
We'll be right back after this message.
Each day provides a new opportunity. In every small way, you show your children how much you care. The message is clear.
I love you, son.
I love you, Mommy.
Welcome back to Parenting by Heart.
Right now we're going to meet Steve and Arlene Richardson. They're parents just like you, except they're raising their daughters in another country.
I'm a missionary mom here in Southeast Asia, and my friends who pray for me back in the West threw a baby shower for me when I was getting ready to have my first baby here in Southeast Asia. And they sent all these things out to me on the mission field, and one of the presents was a book by Ross Campbell, How to Really Love Your Child. And I really enjoyed that book because out here on the mission field, I needed help.
Steve and Arlene struggle with the same questions as every parent, so they try to apply what they've learned from Dr. Campbell's book.
We don't have to earn God's love, and I think that sets the standard for us in our relationship to our children, is that they don't have to earn our love either. No matter what someone does, no matter what decisions, right or wrong, someone makes.
I feel like passing along the spiritual values to our children is something that we model. And what they see in our lives, they're going to catch. And that speaks much louder than our words.
The Richardsons serve as missionaries in Southeast Asia. They've devoted their lives to sharing Christ to unreached people groups. One of the ways they reach the Muslims of this region is through a quilting ministry called Agape Craft.
What's so exciting is that Christians are able to share their faith over a cup of tea, perhaps, over cutting out a pattern, over stitching things together. As these women are stitching the quilts together, they're sharing their faith with people who have never heard. And we felt that Agape Craft, which is what we called it, was an excellent way to share our faith with neighbors by providing job skills, a source of income for the poor. And we felt that the people would really listen to us because they knew how much we cared.
Several hundred people now have employment, people who previously didn't have any job at all. But even more importantly, or just as importantly, a lot of them have found Christ in the process, and they're sharing their newfound faith with other people who still need to hear too.
the Richardsons, life overseas has been a family adventure centered on Christian service.
All 4 of my girls were born right here in this country, and after they were born, I was wondering if they were going to get some strange disease. But you know, God just calmed all those fears, and they're all healthy, they're all happy, and they're living proof that you can have children right here in a cross-cultural environment.
Life is an adventure. It's a family adventure. It's a journey that God's given us to walk together as a family. We do it together. It's not just one person's vision. It's our vision as a family.
I have loved having my children born here on the mission field. I feel like their heritage is rich. They know a few languages. They speak English and a couple others. They don't see differences in skin color. They hug the people. They love the people. They eat the same food. We've climbed volcanoes together. We can go to the beach together. We've worked in villages, and in many ways they're our little partners here.
The Richardsons truly are passing along a legacy to their children. They're modeling an authentic faith. They're teaching their children to serve, and they're praying together as a family.
Each of us has the opportunity to pass along a spiritual legacy to our children.
My challenge is be a good parent. Don't be a great parent, be a good parent. And I love that, because that's that margin of error. That's that margin of error that good old St. Paul talked about in Romans 7, and it certainly speaks to God's grace in life. And we worship a great God, a God that can love us even though we are riddled with imperfection.
If a parent regularly communicates unconditional love and understanding, that child will naturally grow to accept and practice a parent's values and faith. Passing along your faith is the most valuable treasure we can give to our offspring.
And we really need to understand that you can have all the things, all the toys, but if you don't know who Lord Jesus Christ is in your life, you're in big trouble. But if you haven't done the job as a parent of teaching those truths to your children, you're in big trouble too. So it's serious business, but it can be done in a fun-filled way, I think. You can have fun in your family. You can love each other. You can have spend time together and have a good time being the parent that God would have you to be.
We hope that you've watched Parenting by Heart with an open mind, that you'll be willing to make some changes in order to be a better parent.
That you will look at your children with a new commitment to love them unconditionally and to work at conveying that love through eye contact, physical contact, and focused attention.
And remember, it's in the context of a loving relationship that your child is going to be more responsive to your discipline, and they're going to be more willing to accept your faith and your values.
Thank you for listening. May God bless you and your family.
Now